All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back for week 9. Man, can't wait. It's college football season. It's just, we wait all year for it, and now it's already halfway over. It's just insane how quick it flies by. I guess this is the true halfway point, right?
I think we're past the halfway point a little bit.
7 games. Yeah, we're just over halfway.
This is game 8 for Tennessee.
This will be game 8 this week. So yeah, but then you got postseason, you have bowl games, big 13, or a conference championship would be 13 games. Who knows?
Like, you're not telling Rutgers fans we're at the midway point. Like, their season's wrapping up pretty soon.
That's fair.
A lot of schools, it's wrapping up pretty soon. But no, I mean, I think it's more of like the stretch run. This is like the bread and butter. I think there's 2 different great parts, where it's like the beginning when you're just happy it's back. Like that first couple weeks of just like, oh wow, actual football's back, and you're just in that. That's why I think it's fun to always schedule at least one big game early, to just get that excitement back up and like just get your blood pumping, like Pitt, Tennessee was, and then like Georgia, Clemson was last year. And then, I mean, even Georgia, Oregon this year. Like, you want something like that to get you amped up for the start of the new season. And then you have a couple cupcakes, whatever. And then you get, like, your schedule's not that bad. Like, I mean, Georgia fans, to an unreal extent right now, they have kind of just had to wait for a lot of their big games that are all coming down the pike, like getting Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, all this late in the year. You're just kind of like, all right, can we get to the fun stuff? Can we get to where we actually, and Mississippi State too, should throw that in there. But like that, those are the big ones. So, I mean, this is a big weekend. I love that it's set up in a way where you don't have to like pay attention to 2 different games at once. If you really like, Penn State and Ohio State's at noon, Georgia, Florida's at 3:30, and Tennessee and Kentucky is at 7. So having those games all separate is great. I'm glad that I don't have to like worry about paying close attention to 2 games simultaneously that I really want to see while they're happening on Saturday. But this is a big weekend across the board. Like, we should tell folks, if you didn't get to the pumpkin patch last week, you're out of luck probably the rest of the way, especially for our Georgia folks back home and our East Tennessee folks. You missed the boat, because now it's just full steam ahead. Like, we're talking playoff this week. Players are getting asked about the playoff at Tennessee, and where their heads are at. Like, the first rankings come out next week. This is just big time football the rest of the way, and just high pressure football the rest of the way for both of our teams and plenty others who are in big games this weekend. But very, very excited.
Yeah, I guess that's the true stretch run. It's like, once the playoff rankings come out, it's like, okay, this is the home stretch. Things are getting real now.
Things are getting real. And the best part is, it gets settled on the field. Like, a lot of this is going to get settled on the field, and we'll see who remains when the dust settles. But
and as far as Georgia's schedule goes, it's like Florida's always kind of been that final like checkpoint of like, is the season going to be a success or a failure? You beat Florida, because then there's been years where Auburn's down, and it's like, Florida's the last real. I mean, historically, Kentucky, they're kind of a bottom feeder. Kentucky, Tech, and if Auburn's down, and then that November cupcake, it's like there's years where Florida's that like last hurdle in Georgia's season, and this year it's like the whole month of November before the Georgia Tech game. It's like potentially ranked opponents. Like, it's a really different vibe this year.
I mean, that you have a 4-week stretch now that's going to push Georgia in a way that we haven't seen them pushed in a while. Like, obviously getting Tennessee at home's good for the Dogs, but neutral site against Florida, you get Tennessee at home the following week. Then you got to go to Kentucky, and then go to Mississippi State, and then get Tech. I mean, that's just a lot back to back to back. A lot of physical teams, a lot going to be thrown at the Dogs over the next month. But this is also what you want to do. Like, this is the best part of the college football season, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Speaking of that, there's been a lot more talk about Georgia, Florida going home and home and what they're going to do. What are your thoughts on the rivalry? You think they should keep it neutral site? Or do you think they should go home and home? Sounds like Kirby is like set. That's why I feel like it's going to happen. The contract is up in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
and they released a joint statement. Like the two schools released like a joint statement this week that like about the contract being up. And I think there's an option to renew it to like 2025 or something, which sounds like what a lot of people think is going to happen. But after 2025, like I think Kirby is going to get his way. I think this is going to turn into like a home and home. I'd like to see the home neutral
That's what I
home.
was gonna
I
say.
think
Is
that
that I think is the best way of doing it. Is you still have it, maybe not every year for recruiting and whatever you want to do, and you want, and like I think Georgia fans probably would prefer it, right? Like to get Florida in Athens every couple of years. Like it would be more fun to be able to go to a Georgia game at home with Florida. Like I think it would be more fun. Like if you think about it, there, if Tennessee and I don't know, Tennessee and Kentucky had this rivalry where it was just set up that they would play at like the Chiefs Stadium at Arrowhead
well,
forever.
that would make no sense. But if they played in, I don't know,
Nashville, maybe. How about the
Cincinnati or
Titan Stadium?
Nashville, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're like, do we really have to preserve this, or would you rather actually just play on our home? Or like, we're two people that champion the getting rid of neutral site games and that they're just not good for the sport, and you'd rather have them on college campuses versus NFL stadiums. But I think it's a little bit different with like Texas, Oklahoma, a little bit different for Georgia, Florida than the other neutral site games. It's just a little
Yeah,
bit different.
it actually has the built-in tradition within the rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like at one point Auburn, Alabama was this neutral site game until it wasn't. And I looked at it like it's kind of interesting because Alabama, I guess, kind of considered Birmingham more home than Auburn did.
Tennessee used to only
Um,
play Alabama in Birmingham.
but if you look at it, in '89 was the first year where they played at Auburn. But then starting in '93, they started playing home and home, and they were still Alabama was still playing its home game in Birmingham. So like
Hmm.
93, 94, it's like Auburn, Birmingham, Auburn, Birmingham. It's not until 2000 that they actually played in Tuscaloosa.
Hmm.
And it's other than I think like one time in like the 30s or something. But yeah, I mean, and it's like that's such a huge like you hear recruits talk about it like being at the kick six game and stuff like that being the reason they went to Auburn, just like these different atmospheres. And I think Kirby, and that's what Kirby's always talked about, that Alabama LSU rivalry just for like a decade straight was just essentially like an NFL showcase. There'd be like 45 future NFL players on the field at any given time, and every single recruit wanted to be at that game. And it's like all of that attention is on your campus. You're hosting them. You're showing them everything. So I think it's only a matter of time. But I would like to see there is something to the Jacksonville thing that I don't want to see it gone forever.
That's fair.
Unless the Jags go to London or something, then that might be the ultimate ending to playing in Jacksonville.
There you go. We'll see. I think ultimately, like you said, Kirby's gonna get his way. So I think it's a moot point. I think once it was like kind of set out there, and like Kirby made it a point that he wanted to move on from this, it was like, okay, the wheels are in motion. Like this is ending, whether or not you want it to stay. Like this is not where the wind is blowing. So, but we shall see when that eventually. You said it's 2025 when the
It's
contract's up.
2023, and
Oh,
there's
okay.
an option to extend it to 2025. But
Okay.
yeah, they estimate over $30 million a year that game generates for the city of Jacksonville. So it's
Hmm.
like it's not going to do the same in a smaller town like Gainesville or Florida
Hmm.
or Athens, but I mean it might generate 20 million that weekend for Athens, you know, and I mean that would be huge for your and just the exposure it has for your town, just the atmosphere when a big game is in a college town. I mean, it's unlike anything
Yeah.
else.
We'll see ultimately what happens. Maybe Shad Khan, like AEW, comes out and just Chris Jericho puts Kirby in the walls of Jericho to keep them from breaking up the contract. Maybe that's what you have to do
Is
there.
Jericho, is he affiliated with the Jags?
He's affiliated with AEW, and AEW is owned by the son of the owner of the Jags, and he works for the Jags. So the Khan family.
Gotcha. I did not know it.
Tony
A
Khan.
lot, a
Yeah,
lot of moving parts there.
a lot of
It's
moving
always keep
parts.
you around.
Yeah, that's why Urban Meyer was like featured in AEW stuff, and like, yeah, that was like when he was the coach of the Jags. So, yeah, maybe that's what you got to do. That's the only way. Maybe that's the only way it happens. All right. Well, Matt Green, a couple things from Nigel, our good friend Nigel the Nighthawk, has dropped off for us. Will Healy, who was considered for the Tennessee job, he was a rising star as a head coach in the Group of Five level a couple of years ago at Charlotte. And look, shout out to Charlotte for rebranding. Like, that was a good move. I don't know why it took so long for them to drop the UNC part of it. The Charlotte 49ers works a lot better. You just sound bigger. It's like not University of Florida, Miami. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't work the same. You can't, there's a difference between UNC women. Like, so I'm glad they haven't embraced that they are now just Charlotte. So I think that will be huge as they continue growing as a program. But Will Healy out. They've only won one game to this point this year. But I thought it was interesting. Football Scoop said, "quote the writer from the piece highlighting Healy's firing, saying, quote, that's a really good job. That's going to get a lot of interest. There will be a lot of big time guys who will go after that one. Some names mentioned: Campbell University head coach Mike Minner, former safety with the Panthers. Remember him? You
Oh
also
yeah.
got
He's on that Super Bowl team.
yeah, Larry Porter, running backs coach for North Carolina, who obviously North Carolina's ran the ball really well in the last couple of years under Mac Brown. Jerry Mack, so this could affect the Tennessee Volunteers, who was a HBCU head coach of the year. Previously, he's been a star and he's been great for the Tennessee running back room. He's been considered Notre Dame tight ends coach. Gerald Parker, obviously Notre Dame's basically tight end U in a lot of ways over the last few years. I don't know. I'm curious to see who ultimately gets that job, but Charlotte might still. It's been rough. I'm kind of surprised it went the way it did under Will Healy. Hope maybe he bounces like he just goes somewhere else, rebuilds a little bit, and then gets another Group of Five shot. But seems like just didn't work out there. But he still, I would not count out Will Healy. And I also am just curious to see what Charlotte can continue to do because they're in a fertile recruiting ground area. They're in a major city, North Carolina. There's, like I said, a lot of talent there. I'm very curious to see what happens with Charlotte and which way they go going forward. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have much to add on Will Healy. On Will Healy, you know more about the situation than me. But hey, he can always resurface at Alabama. You know, be an analyst or maybe an on-field coach. You know, go through the Nick Saban coaching rehabilitation program. It's always an option for him.
Hey, even just Tennessee analyst now. We joke about the Alabama analyst. Why not Tennessee analyst Will Healy? Let's do it. Pac-12 commissioner says fans not in favor of USC UCLA move. George Clivey, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I have not heard it the same way pronounced. Either way, the Pac-12 commish talking to, I think he said like hundreds of fans of Pac-12 schools and coaches and whatever. Not a fan. Not surprising. Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that most folks are like, yeah, this sucks. Why would we want the super conference moves? And yeah, it's got to be weird because I'm imagining it's not any different for Sankey or any other commissioners around the sport that like, do you know of anyone who's in favor of all of these changes with conference realignment? Like, have you met someone personally, Matt, that's been in favor of it?
No, not at all. It's
Yeah.
there's not one fan. It's like it's one thing, honestly. A realistic Maryland fan.
Mm.
That's the only person because they were like talking about having to cut sports entirely if they didn't go to the Big Ten and get more money.
Mm.
So it's like obviously everyone's like understands the financial gain from doing something like this, but like this isn't shocking at all. Like regional rivalries are the lifeblood of not only college sports in general, but college football. Like it's just it's everything. And
Mm.
yeah, USC, UCLA, you can still play every year and do your thing. But like you want to play Stanford, you want to play Cal, you want to play Oregon, Washington, like Arizona State. Like those are the teams around you. Like that's what the tradition, like that's the teams you've grown up playing, disliking, like all that sort of things. It's like it's just totally tone deaf to just
Mhm.
be like, no, we're gonna play Iowa and Penn State now. It's like it's so just it's so unrealistic. Like
Mm.
especially when like today and age when we're talking about environmental impact and trying to worry about those things, gas prices and all this stuff, and you're gonna just travel across the country for like every single conference game, like in a football season. Like it makes no sense, especially the other sports. Like I still don't understand how it's gonna work in the other sports. Like USC playing a 20 game Big Ten basketball schedule and going to Rutgers on a Tuesday night. Like I don't know. It's a terrible. I feel like it's a terrible idea. Like it felt like with the playoff, like college football is driving all of this, right?
Mhm.
Like all the other sports just had to figure out whatever college football decides. It felt like the playoff and even expanding it to 12, it was like that was gonna, kind of pump the brakes and everything. We didn't need to have these super conferences because now we can kind of split it up. Like, oh, you win your region, you go to the playoff, and
Mhm.
a kind of like high school format where you know exactly the formula it takes for you to ultimately win the championship. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like, and it's happening soon, right? Like, is it starting 2024?
I think so, because I know Texas and Oklahoma aren't coming now until 2025, but I think that's the plan. But I still, this is what's so weird is I don't believe it's just going to be those two in 2024. It makes no sense for the travel. Like I don't know how you're going to pull
No.
that off. I don't know how you're going to have these two California schools just travel all over the country for all these sports and not play any one regional. I don't see it. I don't see how that works.
Yeah, it's like they're turning into like IMG or
Yeah.
like Oak Hill Academy. They just play a national schedule and
Hmm.
have no regional rivals or anything. It's weird. It's not like we saw the backyard brawl.
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, West Virginia not playing it for a few years. Like that rivalry, even though we're like, yeah, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, whatever. Is that a rivalry? I don't know. Is it? I've never heard about it. On a national level, a lot of people might not know about it, but it's like the people in that area it meant a whole lot to. Like I was honestly kind of surprised once Tennessee came to Pittsburgh, like a week or two later, it was like, oh wow, they're not getting up nearly as much for this Tennessee game as they did West Virginia, or that might say something about how many West Virginia fans were there too. But yeah, it's the regional rivalries is just what make college football, and getting rid of that, it's just I don't know, it's a bad idea. I feel like something is going to happen to intervene before they actually join the Big Ten, but who knows?
We shall see. I think a lot is still to be decided, but we'll learn, I think, a lot more when the TV deals come out in the coming, it might be coming days, depending on the reporting you're reading, what that's going to look like. And the fact that expansion is now mentioned for the Pac-12, like, I don't know who they expand with. Like, who, I don't know. Like, is
It
it
would it
Boise?
would just be all the lesser schools,
Yeah.
right? Like that are
San
respectable,
Diego
like
State's
San
probably a
Diego
lock.
States and Fresno and
Hmm.
Boise State, like Colorado State or something like that. Like I don't know. It's a bad look. It's not going to seem real to me until I
Hmm.
see a conference game of Penn State USC, and
Hmm.
it's just like what are we doing right now? I guess we see that in the Rose Bowl, right? But seeing USC play
In the snow in
Minnesota or
November.
something, you're like, what is going on right now?
Yeah. Well, we shall see, Matt Green. Still a lot of time. Aggies, 3 players suspended indefinitely, 3 freshmen. That has happened. Behind the scenes, you had a couple players suspended early on this year as well. So there's been issues brewing behind the scenes in College Station. Just another just rough season for the Aggies. It's just getting worse. And only one of those guys who was suspended has been, I should say, like somewhat consistent player for them. But man, I am so curious to see what happens this winter with College Station. Like, is there a mass exodus from all of these guys
Yeah.
from that class? That would be wild because this is like that's the doomsday scenario. I think if you're an Aggie fan, it's just man, they could absolutely all leave in bulk and leave as a group. And I mean, look, Does Walter Nolan, or should Walter Nolan make his way back to Tennessee based on what he's seen from the Vols? Absolutely. Should he do it? Yeah, no brainer. But outside of that, we'll see what happens with Stewart and everybody else. But I don't know. A horrible season continues to get worse, both on the field and off, for the Aggies.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule that out, honestly. Like at this point, like if you would have told me Jimbo was going to be legitimately like fired type hot seat, and I guess we still don't know that he's actually. We don't know that the seat is that hot from within, right? But man, if they miss a bowl game, it's like I think that's the only way that like the firing stuff starts to seem real at that point. And then I think this is what needs to happen. There has to be like an actual like guys leaving the program, like you said, a mass exodus of like all these recruits that came in are dissatisfied with whatever their role is or whatever the case may be. Like if the culture starts to go sour, like you saw Jim McElwain, right? Win the SEC East each of his first 2 years at Florida, one bad season, and he was gone. Not because of the one bad season, but because everyone in the program hated him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's if the off the field stuff Jimbo starts to lose, then I don't know. The hot seat talk seems more real by the day, honestly.
I think it's real. And I think you don't go bowling, you win 5 games or less. I think there's a real possibility he's gone. I think if they don't make the bowl, if they don't get 6, I think he's out. I don't see how you spin that. I think that's just rock bottom. And I think, I don't know. I don't think you can do that. Sumlin wasn't out here doing that.
Yeah, and like I said before the season, like if they didn't go 10-2 this year, they went 8-4. It's like you just signed the number 1 class in the country. Like you went 8-4. Like relax, it's not your best season, but like the talent is there, and you guys are building something serious. But you miss a bowl game, it's just like I don't know. Everything's reevaluated at that point. It's just we see these college football schedules. Like who they played Miami at a conference, but they didn't really play like a juggernaut schedule at a conference. A lot of these college football schedules have a solid 3, maybe even 4 built-in wins at a conference, and to not make a bowl game is pretty bad.
For sure. Matt Green, our weekend pick'em. It's time for another just catch-up moment before we make our week. What is this? Week 9?
Week 9, sir.
Oof. Week 9 pick, sir. So where do we stand right now?
All right. Chase Thomas on the season is a glowing 66-25 overall, 47-42-2 against the spread. I am 10 games back overall, 56-35, but 6 games back against the spread at 41-48-2. So still working to try to get back to 500. Zeus, on the other hand, has won 3 straight home dogs of the week. Get his record up to 5-4 on the season. So we'll see if he can get a 4th straight victory.
There you go. This will be good. Matt Green, where are we going first this week?
We're gonna start off in dark mode, as they are calling it this week, up on Rocky Top. The Kentucky Wildcats, 12.5-point road dog to the Tennessee Volunteers. And I look at this one, had some Kentucky fans in my mentions this week. When I say Kentucky was struggling to run the ball, because I can't remember who it was, 24/7 Tennessee 24/7 sports guy. Can't remember his name.
Wes Rucker.
There you go. He said something about, how can you not run up tempo when you got a first round quarterback like this? And I feel like it's just hyping up like you hype up your opponent to when you wanted to make him look better when you beat him. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, this guy, he's real tough. One of the strongest guys I've ever seen. So when you beat him, you look that much better. That's how the Will Levis talk feels from Tennessee people this week. It's like, this guy's first round quarterback. It's like, we all know Will Levis isn't a first round quarterback. I don't care what Mel Kiper says. We all see with our eyes how good he is on Saturdays. he's fine. He's not a first rounder, but there's multiple ways to have a good offense. You don't have to just run up tempo. This Tennessee thing they're doing, it's obviously been super successful, but you can also run the ball, play ball control, have a good offense, be balanced running and passing. And that's what Kentucky typically does. And they're one of the better running teams in the SEC over the last 5-6 years. But this year, they're just not that. They're, I think, 11th in the conference in rushing so far this year. And while Tennessee has been really like that's how they're going to have to beat Tennessee. Like they're not going to be able to score them. They have to play time of possession. They have to have the ball for 40 plus minutes. And even playing Tennessee, that doesn't mean you're going to beat Tennessee with these quick strike offense they have. But you're going to have to run the ball, keep the Tennessee offense off the field. Their defense has been really good. That's the one thing Kentucky does, I think, have a legitimate like edge here. Is their defense has been one of the best in the SEC this year, but they haven't been what they typically want to be running the football. Like they've been better since Chris Rodriguez has been back, but I just don't think they're going to be able to hang with like a Wake Forest Army type game, right? Where one team just scores in 30 seconds and the other has the ball for 8 minutes. Like that's the strategy I feel like Kentucky, but I don't see it happening. Kentucky hasn't run the ball well, and Tennessee's been good against the run this year. So I'm going to take Tennessee to win and cover. They could be looking ahead to that big matchup with Georgia next week, but I think the black unis, the environment, that'll keep this one exciting. I don't think they'll overlook Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think and you mentioned getting the ball for 40 minutes. Like Bama had the ball for 37 and a half in the 52-49 win for the Vols. Vols only had it for 22 minutes and scored 52 points. Like ball control is nice and all, but there's nothing more deflating than having like a 12 play, just beautiful drive by Kentucky, like a beautiful one. Like they just really ran it down Tennessee's throat. They had a couple big chunk plays. And then literally the second play from scrimmage, Tennessee just bombs it to Jalen Hyde over the top, and you're right back on the field. I think it's just more arduous for teams to win consistently the way Kentucky plays. I think a lot more has to go their way than Tennessee's way, where Kentucky falling down 3 scores is far more of a disaster situation than Tennessee falling down 3 scores with the way they play. You just have to win a certain way if you're going to beat Kentucky. And like, obviously Will Levis is banged up. He's missed games this year. We'll see what that looks like with the offensive line. I don't know if you mentioned that really, but the offensive line is part of the reason this running game sucks. And it's part of the reason that
100%.
Will Levis has been knocked out of these games is that he's getting hit a bunch this year. And the offensive line, the change there, I think has been the biggest difference with Kentucky from a year ago versus this year, where like Kentucky obviously lost their offensive line coach. He goes to Bama this offseason, and then you also have just a bunch of turnover there, and it's just not the same group. Cole Kublik, former Auburn player, ESPN guy, he tweeted this out that I thought was pretty interesting. Ball football has scored 30 plus points in 10 straight games, longest streak in program history. Kentucky football has allowed 24 or fewer points in 11 straight games, longest active streak in FBS. Okay, well, guess what? Tennessee scored 49 last year with the worst offense. And Kentucky, I think, was a better team last year, and they got them at home. So one of those things has to change, and Kentucky cannot win this game if Tennessee's scoring anywhere near 50. Like for Kentucky to win, it has to be like the Ole Miss situation, where if you're a Kentucky fan, you want it to go like Ole Miss, where you're like, we stifled Ole Miss, we took their big shots, but ultimately we kept Jackson Dart in check. We let Judkins run all over us, but like still, we were a bend don't break team, and we were in it until the last play. Like we had the ball and we fumbled, and that was it. But we should have really probably won that game on the road. Here's the problem: Ole Miss's offense and Jackson Dart is not Hendon Hooker. Like that's the biggest difference of Kentucky wanting to play a similar game to Ole Miss, is that what we've seen from Jackson Dart and what we just saw from him on the road in Baton Rouge is different. He's not a Heisman candidate. Like Hendon Hooker is having the best season anybody in the SEC this year. Yeah, Bryce Young's the best player, but Hendon Hooker is having the best season. And I think there's a difference there when talking about the draft and talking about just what we've seen to this point. I look at this matchup and I think it's a bad one for Kentucky. Tennessee is 8th in the country, like 8th in rushing defense. Like you cannot run on Tennessee to this point. Chris Rodriguez, if he's bottled up and they have to rely on Will Levis to do stuff behind this shaky offensive line, it's just not a recipe for success against this Tennessee team. I think this is a worse matchup for Kentucky than, I mean, even Florida was. I think Florida had a better chance of coming into Knoxville and beating Tennessee than Kentucky does. I don't think this stuff is real for them. I don't think they have a chance. Like seeing the double digit spread here, I think is pretty indicative of where a lot of folks see these two programs at the moment. Another fascinating nugget from Connor O'Gara, friend of the pod of Saturday Night South. He said in his preview write-up, I thought was interesting, quote, Kentucky has not beaten an AP top 5 team since 2007, Matt Green, and hasn't
LSU
done so
Tigers.
on the road since the Jimmy Carter administration.
That's not recent.
No, I'm not like, this is silly. I should be worried. Like you got like the upset potential at home. You got Georgia the following week. Like I obviously will be like locked in everything, but I'm not shaky about this game. This is not the one I'm shaky about. I don't think this is, if Tennessee gets tripped up the rest of the way at home, it's not this one. It's not Mizzou.
Hot take. If this is a game in the second or third quarter, you will see a surprise onside kick from Kentucky at some point. Because that's the only way to they'll have to steal a possession or something like that. Like, because there's just no way they're going to be able to hang with Tennessee's offense.
Well, they have to force turnovers. Like, if it's like 3 turnovers, like 3 fumbles by Tennessee in the first half, then I could see it. Like that has to happen. They have to force a multitude of turnovers. This defense has to be top notch.
And they've only allowed 4 touchdowns. They're second in total defense in the SEC. They've only allowed 4 passing touchdowns on the season. So it's like they have been good defensively, but they also haven't faced a team like Tennessee and on the road as well. And I was also selling them short for how bad they've been on the ground. 113 yards a game. That is 13th in the SEC. Only Mississippi State averages less yards a game on the ground. Nobody has the worst yards per carry. They're at 3.1 yards per carry so far this year. Yeah, so like they just haven't been able to get it done.
The offensive line sucks.
They're going to have to play, and against Mississippi State, they ran the ball really well. And like that's how they're going to have to play offensively. And you're not going to see that. Like it's the winning formula would have to be them playing better than they've played all season. And I don't necessarily see that happening against Tennessee. The last thing I'll say, do you know the last 2 times these teams played as both ranked opponents?
2016?
Incorrect, sir. It was 1951. And the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers beat the number 9 Kentucky Wildcats 28-0. Do you also know
what happened? Say that again. What was the original question?
The last 2 times they were ranked playing each other.
They were not. Wait, were they both not even ranked last year? That's wild. Man.
Yeah. 1951 was last time. Do you know what else happened in 1951?
What?
That would be one of Tennessee's 2 national titles in program history.
There you go. Everything's coming up 98. People forget.
Coming up 98. Now it's coming up 51. There's the things are aligning for the Volunteers.
YouTube.com/ChaseThomasPodcast.
People know about 98. People know about 98. Not many people shout out the 51 team. Doesn't get enough respect. Is that a General Neyland team, 51? Or is he like 1920s?
I think I was gonna say I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I would have my doubts. I don't think it was General Neyland. Yeah, General Neyland died in 1962.
Okay.
Yeah, 1952. Oh, 1952 is his last year.
Okay, so that was
him. Okay. Second to last year. He was 173-31.
Not pretty bad. Good. Not bad at all.
He counts 4 championships though. 38, 40, 50, and 51.
No, is that right?
Yeah.
College football, you never know.
When you get that far back, like it's just Alabama claims stuff that some folks disagree that they should be claiming.
Yeah, and the College Football Hall of Fame, I remember, claims a different year than Georgia claims. Like they had like 1927 and 1980 at the time, and the only 2 in the stadium are 1944 1942 and 1980, and now 2021, obviously. But
Their only loss that year was at Mississippi State.
Fun fact. But
There you
yeah,
go.
so 51, who knows? Last time they played a ranked Kentucky team when they were ranked, also won a national championship. So
Would Georgia fans be salty if Tennessee really did do the LSU thing this year?
I mean, yeah, Georgia fans don't want Tennessee to win a national championship. What kind of question is that?
But like salty, like really upset. Like you had to rise and wait, and then Heupel comes in year 2 and just immediately wins a national title. Would that be? That would be tough. Like, what would it be worse?
I don't think I would care about that as much, because it's like Kirby year 2 was an overtime, a busted coverage away from a national championship year 2. So they also had the quick rise. It obviously took them longer to win the actual national championship. But I think it's more of just from a competitive balance standpoint. It's like, okay, Tennessee just won a national championship. Like that's another, elite program within like a 6-7 hour radius of Athens, Georgia, like that. And that's why, like, when Clemson and Alabama were facing each other years ago, I remember I was one of the few Georgia fans rooting for Alabama. I'm like, where are we recruiting against Alabama every year? I don't want another team an hour up the road from Atlanta to win a national championship. So yeah, so Clemson, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, all in that like 6 hour radius or so of Athens.
Well, obviously, I'm going to go Vols win and cover for this one. But yeah, I think if you play this game 100 times, Tennessee wins big 98 times out of 100. But a couple times, like it is spooky season, Matt Green.
Yeah,
wearing the black and orange. You love the black helmets, though, right? You're in on the new dark mode uniforms, right?
Yeah, I like these. I mean, I'm not crazy about them because Tennessee, because I'm a stickler for teams that don't have black in their color scheme, rocking black. I feel like, and Tennessee specifically had the smoky gray thing going for them. Like, they didn't necessarily need the second one, but they look good. Like, I can't hate on them. I thought the ones last year looked so dumb with the white helmets. You said it was a supply issue.
Yes.
I don't care. It's not an excuse. It was a bad uniform. But same uniforms with a black helmet, they'll definitely look tight.
There you go.
Hope Kentucky doesn't rock like some all white with like the chrome silver helmets like they do sometimes. Like,
I like the chrome Kentucky helmets. You don't like those?
Teams are a little recognized. No, I hate the chrome helmets. I hate like everyone's chrome helmets. I don't think there's one team that looks good with them.
TCU has some good ones. I'm trying to think who else has chrome.
It's not my thing. I would choose like the Michigan State, like the matte, like the flat coloring before I'd go with the chrome. That's not my thing. Kentucky just needs to rock some basic blue, white, blue. I don't like when both teams on the field are unrecognizable. I got Kentucky in white and gray, Tennessee in black. It's just, I need.
Are they wearing white and gray?
No, I'm just saying. Like,
they probably announced it. I'm gonna look at.
I think that's what they wore versus Georgia last year. It's just like all white with those.
Yeah, I remember that
chrome silver helmets. But no, Kentucky, I just they could have good uniforms, and I feel like every week they rock like some combination that I'm like, they just look stupid. But if they rock just some basic blue and white, I feel like they'd look better than they did. They're trying too hard with their uniforms. That's what it is.
Yeah, they haven't announced it. They're not leaning into it like Tennessee does. So I don't know what they're wearing this week. Matt Green, where are we going next?
All right, let's keep it moving. We are going to Ohio State and Penn State. The Buckeyes are a 16.5 point favorite on the road. And I have a question for you. Has anyone milked one good season more than 2016 Penn State and James Franklin?
Go on.
That is the only time that they ever made the Big Ten championship. It's the only time they've beaten Ohio State in the last decade. It's like they play Ohio State tough. So it's like this App State reputation. App State made me eat my words because they pulled off another upset this year. But it's like there's this reputation like, oh, Ohio State goes into Happy Valley. It's dangerous. It's like they've lost one time. Like it's kind of crazy to me how this reputation has kind of developed. But with that said, all of the games have typically been close in this rivalry. So the last four since James Franklin got there at Penn State, Ohio State is 3-1, but it's by an average margin of 4.5 points a game. So like I think you got to go back to like 2015 or 2014 or one of those two for a spread or a margin as big as 16.5 in this game period. So there is something about Penn State that I feel like they're going to play Ohio State close, especially if Ohio State plays the way they did against Iowa in the first half last week. Like Iowa was playing they might have been playing against like 20 players. Honestly, they were playing against themselves and Ohio State in the first half of that game. Like they turned the ball over 3 times, and Ohio State only managed like 19 points, I think, on because they had to pick 6 to make it 26. But the offense only scored 19 points, being gifted like 30, 40-yard fields for most of the first half. CJ Stroud looked a little off, like just uncharacteristically missing kind of open throws and things like that. That said, they still scored 50 against Iowa. So obviously, I feel like they kind of ran it up in the fourth quarter, but that's another conversation. But if they don't just like come out crisp and just making plays like they did last week against Iowa, like Penn State will hang around and like they'll make this a 4-quarter game. With that said, I think Ohio State will win this game, but I don't see them winning it by 16.5. So give me Penn State against the spread, but Ohio State to win it.
It's interesting. You just don't like James Franklin. James Franklin, though, he's won 11 games 3 times since he's been there. Still a chance to do that this year. They're 6-1. Still a path to them getting there. I think when you go back, I mean, Joe Pa won 11 games 3 times in about 20 years.
But it's different back then. They're playing like 11-game seasons lots of times, right?
I'm saying he went his last year or his second to last year. He went or hold on, that's weird. Okay, so 2009 he went 11-2. 2008 he went 11-2. I mean, James Franklin's gotten this team up to number 2 in the AP poll in 2017. I don't know. I think 9-4 the following year, 11-2, 11-2 in 2019, 2020, everything that just throw 2020 out the building, and then last year they were injury prone. I don't know. I'm not a James Franklin hater. I think he's one of the best 7 coaches in college football. I think he's in that group.
I'll give him 5-4 in 2020 because this day, Indiana did not beat them. Michael Penix Jr. was short of the goal line. Mm-hmm. So I'll give him a 5th win. But I mean, you're talking about a 4-5 though, honestly. In 2020, it was obviously COVID, and then a 7-6. Like they've bounced back this year and they're 6-1 right now, but they still got to play Ohio State. Like
I don't know. I think you're a little too hard on Penn State. Like, what do you want them to be?
I don't know. It's
they're one of the 10 best programs in college football.
Like they have this reputation of like what Happy Valley is, because it's like it's a cool atmosphere, but it doesn't seem like they necessarily just take care of business at home. Like, so I don't know. I'm not hating on Penn State, but
they haven't won a national title since '86, man. Like they've only won 4 conference championships. Like, I don't know. I mean, I just think they're fine. They're a solid A- program.
But they were still a powerhouse up until like the mid to late 90s. Even if they didn't win like a championship, like they were still like finishing top 5 and top 10 and stuff. I think a lot of people said Paterno didn't run the score up on people lots of times, and that kind of cost him some style points over the years, and like not getting ranked number 1 at the end of seasons when people just voted on who the champion was and we didn't actually play each other. So Penn State can still be a powerhouse. Like Franklin is a good coach, but I just found that interesting. Like looking at this rivalry head to head, it's like, wow. So Ohio State really, like, it feels like it's a good game every year. So I guess that's why it doesn't necessarily feel like such domination, but Ohio State has definitely dominated this rivalry.
Penn State has this is coming from SI. I thought was interesting. Penn State has outscored teams 42-15 in the first quarter of matchups this season. Ohio State has outscored teams 114 to 34 in the first quarter. So both teams get off to hot starts traditionally. So I'm curious to see how that goes this week, because obviously both teams cannot do that here in Happy Valley. But I do think it's something to monitor. And then the average margin of victory. You talk about the history where Penn State hasn't won, but they've all been close. Like they're all super close. The average margin of victory has been 6.3 points per game in the last 6 meetings between these two schools. I think it ultimately comes down to one thing. Like this is how we'll know who wins this football game. If Sean Clifford has a running touchdown, a passing touchdown, and plays 4 quarters and is the better quarterback on Saturday and outplays CJ Stroud, who had a rough game last week, I think Penn State wins. But if Sean Clifford has the nightmare game and Sean Clifford throws a couple picks,
I thought you were going to hit me with some stat that they're like 12-0 when he has a rushing touchdown,
they've only lost one game.
And plays 4 quarters.
I think they've only lost one game when he has a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown. I think they're like 6-1 or something.
Okay, I would not bank on him being the best quarterback on the field on Saturday.
CJ Stroud was bad last week.
Exactly, and if Penn State's getting pressure, then that can change everything, and then get this crowd involved. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is supposed to be back for this one. I know this Penn State secondary is really good, but like Ohio State, like they just have dudes all over the place. So I don't know. It's going to be hard for them to win this one, but this is Ohio State's season. Honestly, if they don't. I think it's hard without some chaos with what their schedule has been so far. Obviously, they're still going to have Michigan, but if they lose this game, I think it's going to be tough for them to bounce back and get in the playoff. But I don't see them losing either.
I'm not going to pick them to lose either. I'm going to go Ohio State to win and cover.
All right. Put it on the board. Keeping it moving. Our next one, we got the Horned Frogs, the 7th-ranked Horned Frogs, going to Morgantown. And you know how I feel about Morgantown. West Virginia Mountaineers are a 7.5-point home dog in this one. So I racked my brain on this one. You know, I went back and forth. The Mountaineers are dangerous, but you can't ignore this defense. Giving up 33.7 points per game. 118th in the country. And that sounds bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you take out some of those cupcake games, those non-conference games, in Big 12 play this year, they're allowing 45 points per game. Kansas State, TCU just scored 38 on Kansas State last week. They're number 1 scoring defense in the Big 12. They might score 90 on West Virginia, honestly. This TCU offense, I'm still betting on Max Duggan. I know I know crazy things seem to happen in Morgantown. Inexplicable things seem to happen in Morgantown, but I just can't see them slowing down this TCU offense enough to hang with them. So give me the Horned Frogs to go on the road, win, and cover.
Oof. Yeah, this was tough. West Virginia, obviously a big win this past week, big upset win. And West Virginia then getting killed by Texas Tech, I think this following week, right? Wasn't that last week? Wasn't it?
Yes, I believe that was.
That was Texas the order Tech. Of events,
yeah,
I think.
48-10 this past week.
Yeah, Texas Tech, who had a freshman quarterback. Looks like he's going to be a dude for Jay McGuire and those Red Raiders. But Pat McAfee wondering aloud if Neil Brown still the guy. Probably not great for the state of the program. Pat McAfee's like the new voice of West Virginia fans. So he's going to be like the czar of where West Virginia goes, it seems like, but he's fun. 6 picks for JT Daniels this year. Not efficient JT Daniels. He's been
only like reckless. 10 touchdowns?
Yeah, so he's been a little reckless with the ball. Both teams give up a lot of yards to the air. West Virginia starting running back Mathis will not be available for this game. Another thing about JT, 4 picks in his last 2 games, completing about 60% of his passes. I just don't like that matchup. I don't know. I just don't trust this offense, and I don't trust what I've seen to this point from the Mountaineers to get this done against a great TCU team. And I think this TCU defense is going to cause some problems for JT and company. So I think JT is going to throw a couple more picks in this one. But something else to monitor: West Virginia's kicker, 11 for 11 this year. So if it does come down to 3.5 point spread, or they're right there, and West Virginia has an opportunity to win late with field goal, they have a kicker for it. So keep that in mind if it comes down to it. But no, I'm going to go TCU to win and cover.
All right, put it on the board. Our next one, we got Notre Dame going on the road to Syracuse. Syracuse is a 2.5 point favorite in this one. A little surprising, just with how much better they've been than Notre Dame so far this year. This feels like such a letdown game, right? Like Syracuse almost beat Clemson. By all intents and purposes, it's like a good performance, right? Like Syracuse has like basically zero respect nationally as a football program. To take Clemson to the wire like that in Death Valley, it's basically like, it's, no such thing as moral victories, but it's kind of a moral victory. It feels like Notre Dame will be a letdown. But I just look at this Notre Dame team, and they're just so uninspiring. Like, what are they? 82nd ranked offense in the country. Like, this Syracuse defense is just really solid. And I think at home, I don't see them losing this one. So I'm going back and forth. I don't like Notre Dame. It feels like they might get off to a slow start, but I don't like Notre Dame enough to pick them to win. So give me Syracuse, but not super confident.
Interesting. I think people don't give Syracuse enough credit for pushing Clemson to that point where they're up 2 scores on Clemson going into the second half on the road, tough environment. Just really, really put Clemson in the blender defensively. Like, they did just great work. Like, obviously that fumble return was a huge play, and the touchdown return. Syracuse has that showed out, and that was with Sean Tucker really not being a factor for the Orangemen. But I think getting back home is big for them. I think Syracuse is fine. I think they've actually kind of proved who they are, and they're a really good football team, and one of the 25 best teams in the country right now. And Notre Dame is not. Notre Dame is 99th in long scrimmage plays, which is not good. 70th in yards per attempt, not good. I just don't think that's going to work against a team who is just really efficient at home and knows exactly who they are and what works. And Syracuse is a pretty close to a complete team. They need a little bit more playmaking outside to kind of diversify that offense a little bit, but they have guys all over the place and they're healthy. And I don't know. I think Notre Dame soars when you play a bad defensive team like a UNC or something that kind of props this offense back up and gets them moving. But there's something off this Notre Dame offense, and Drew Pine's not the dude. And I don't think they're going to go into Syracuse and win this football game. I think Syracuse wins and covers.
All right. Put it on the board. A lot of agreements so far. I don't know how to feel about it.
Well, we still have a lot of home dogs ready to go here because Matt Green, we've already picked 2 road teams, I think, out of 4, which is a little concerning.
This is true. Keeping it moving, we got the Oklahoma Sooners going on the road at Iowa State. The Cyclones are a 2-point home dog in this one. You look at the Cyclones, man. Matt Campbell, feeling for this guy. We talked about last year. I feel like not even talked about. It was like unanimous. Nebraska was the greatest 3-win team in the history of college football, right? They may not have won any games, but they were in every game they played. Iowa State has lost 4 games in a row by an average of 3.5 points per game. 7 points to Baylor, 3 points at Kansas, 1 point Kansas State, 3 points at Texas. They're right there, and they're last in the conference, averaging 16 points per game in conference play, worst in the entire Big 12. But you know what? Just what the doctor ordered. The doctor ordered Oklahoma's defense to get your offense going right. I talked to you about how West Virginia have been giving up 45 points a game in the Big 12 and Big 12 play this year. The only team that's worse in Big 12 play this year is the Oklahoma Sooners, giving up 46.8 points per game, getting absolutely torched by everybody they play. So Iowa State, 4 in a row. They're too close to lose 5 in a row. This Oklahoma defense can't stop anybody. Give me the Cyclones to win and cover. Pull the upset. Home dog. This isn't the official home dog, but this is a home dog that I'm picking.
Interesting. You're back on the Matt Campbell bandwagon, Matt Green. Oklahoma is 78.
I'm probably just fading Brent Venables in the Oklahoma team more than anything.
You're giving him the Brian Harsin treatment. That's what you're doing.
I mean, I haven't seen him stop anybody. So Iowa State hasn't scored on anybody. Something's got to give. We'll see.
Ohio. Oklahoma is 78-7-2 all time in this series. Eric Gray, old Tennessee friend, has been awesome of late for the Sooners, so that's a big part of why I'm leaning Sooners here. He had a big game against KU a week ago, but I think it's going to be interesting. This game will come down to Eric Gray versus the Cyclones run defense, which has been fantastic all season long. They have the best run defense in the conference. On the flip side, Oklahoma can't stop the run, one of the worst in the conference, and the Clones get both 2 big running backs back for this one. The Clones also have to go 3-2 starting this weekend to make a bowl game this year for Matt Campbell and the Cyclones. So the pressure is on for Iowa State to have a winning record down the stretch here, but I don't think it happens today or on Saturday. Give me the Sooners to win and cover, my friend.
All right. Lock it in.
Another road team. I don't like it. I don't like how my picks are unfolding this week.
That's true. You took Syracuse. I mean, you only took TCU and Oklahoma so far.
We're at 3. No, I have Ohio State.
Too. That's true. You didn't take Kentucky. That might be the road dog you should have taken. Keeping it moving. 3:30 CBS, world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia, Florida. The Bulldogs are a 22-point favorite in this one. I want to say I heard that was the largest Georgia's ever been favored in this matchup. Since 2000, there have been 5 games where Georgia is top 10 and Florida is unranked. Georgia is only 3-2 in those games. However, they're 2-0 under Kirby Smart in such games, and they're winning by 31 points per game, which would be the 2017 game and the 2021 game. So it's hard to say. Crazy things happen in Georgia, Florida, but it feels like this rivalry that for so much of my life was just dominated by the Gators. It feels like the turntables have turned. Georgia's won 4 of the last 5 in this series. Florida actually, so who does this team sound like? Florida leads the SEC in yards per carry so far this year. Kind of surprising, especially with how bad they've been throwing the ball. So this game is at a neutral site. There's an athletic quarterback, and there's a team with basically, you could say an elite running game, statistically. I'd say that pretty much describes the Georgia-Oregon game. A athletic quarterback, a neutral site, and a dominant running game. And Georgia absolutely smoked Oregon. And I think Bo Nix is a lot better than Anthony Richardson. And he's definitely played a lot better in 2022. So that's probably the best comp for any team on Georgia's schedule to compare Florida to. And you've just seen under Kirby Smart, these teams that have athletic quarterbacks that are kind of limited passers. Like Georgia just has so much speed on that second level with the linebackers. They don't ever seem to really give Georgia problems like they really seem to always give Georgia problems under Mark Richt. But yeah, I just don't see Florida moving. I think the only way Georgia doesn't score 40 in this game is if it's like a 31-0. Like if Florida's at single digits, you could just see Georgia just call it quits at 35-0 or something like that. So Georgia's one of 2 teams in college football. I feel like we kind of like Tennessee's the sexy team. Ohio State's got all the NFL players. Bama is Bama. I feel like Georgia's kind of being overlooked. There's only 2 teams in college football this year that are in the top 10 in points per game offensively and points allowed defensively, and that's Georgia and Michigan. So Georgia's scoring, averaging 42 points per game this year. Their offense has been really explosive. Stetson Bennett, only 7 touchdowns, but he's taking care of the ball, completing 70% of his passes. This Florida defense has not stopped anybody. I think they're either last or second to last in pass defense and run defense. I think Georgia's gonna take care of business. Probably like a 42-7 kind of thing. I think this one might get ugly.
Definitely a possibility for that one. I think it's weird that Georgia's last in the SEC in sacks. I don't know why that is. Only 7 sacks this year for the Dogs.
Especially because their pass defense has been really good, but not creating as. I mean, they have gotten some pressure, but not getting the sacks. And obviously, part of you see with the defensive line that just left for the NFL, it's hard to bounce back. And Jalen Carter is another one that's been out that could be healthy and could return for this one.
Dan Jackson also out for the year, right? Safety.
Yeah, he is out for the year, and I think I've heard AD Mitchell, he's been day to day for like 3 or 4 weeks. And it's sounding more and more like he's not going to play in this one. So we'll see what happens. Dan Jackson, he wasn't a starting safety, but he got a good number of minutes. He got that great block on the final on Keely Ringo's touch on his pick 6 against Alabama. I don't know if you saw he at like the 5-yard line.
Oh, is that Dan Jackson?
Gets absolutely decleated by the Alabama, but he got in the way, and that's all that matters. He's on the field for such a historic play in UGA history. No one can ever take that away from him.
There you go.
Gainesville High School, I want to say.
Interesting. Go Red Elephants.
Red Elephants.
That's interesting. Also, but the Florida is number 1 in sacks allowed, so they're averaging 5 sacks a game. And I also think this will be the ultimate thing for this game. UGA is number 1 and only giving up 1 rushing touchdown this year total. And I think Florida, just being the team identity they are and not having the guys outside of Pearsall out wide to challenge this young, or not even young, like the corners aren't young, Keely Ringo and company, I think they're going to be fine with the Florida receivers out wide, and Florida's going to try and run. And I just don't think it's a matchup that works. Like Florida was able to pick Tennessee apart through the air and keep that one close because of that. I just don't think the same will be true for Georgia. Georgia's corners are so much better. I don't see it. I don't think that's how this game goes. So I think Georgia wins big in this one. I think this is a blowout.
Yeah, I think so. I'll change it. I think it's more of a 34-7, maybe not 42-7, but I think 34. That may have been the exact score.
I'm gonna go 38-17 or something. Let's go 38-17.
Okay. So 38-17. That means you're taking Florida.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, 38. Let's do 38-14 then.
Okay. So you're taking Georgia to win and cover.
I can see a garbage score. Like that's going to break this a lot. It's like the game's over, but they have a garbage touchdown on the Dogs late or something.
Which is basically exactly what happened in 2017 and 2021. And I think that's the one thing, because you've heard people talk this week, certain Georgia players, about like previous players talking about the importance of the rivalry. And I think it was Chris Smith that said like Kirby Smart was the one that told him the importance of this rivalry. Like Kirby Smart, like this is like, as much as like Alabama's kind of becoming Georgia's biggest rival or whatever. And obviously Georgia and Florida aren't in the same position as programs right now. We went through way too many bad years in Jacksonville for this to not be the number 1 rival. And so Georgia just will never overlook that. And I think because those other 2 teams just barely missed shutting out Florida, I think you're definitely going to see Georgia, Kirby and the gang try to keep it on in the fourth quarter if they can and finally get a shutout in this series.
I like it. Where are we going next, Matt Green?
Keeping it moving. Oklahoma State at Kansas State in the Little Apple. The Wildcats are a 1-point favorite in this one. Oklahoma State just can't get any respect, man. They're ranked higher and they just consistently not favored. Texas, now Kansas State. So I look at this game, and Oklahoma State hasn't stopped anybody this year. I think we've both seen that. They've got 3 straight wins in this rivalry, or in this series, I should say. Last in the Big 12 in total defense this year. And Kansas State has the top rushing offense in the Big 12 this year. I think when you don't have a defense, that's a team that's hard to travel. You don't know what you're getting week in and week out. And if Kansas State is able to run the ball as well as they have all year, which it's hard to see Oklahoma State stopping anybody, I think I see Kansas State winning this one. So give me Deuce Vaughn and the gang to pull the upset in Manhattan, Kansas. This is going to be a rowdy environment.
Even no Adrian Martinez doesn't affect you.
No, they'll figure it out.
Will Howard's going to be under center.
The guy that played, that started a couple years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's who came in last week.
Yes, and I think he's going to start this week. Man, it's interesting. He had a good game against TCU, right? Like 13 to 20, 225, rush for 31. I don't know. This is probably the most difficult one to figure out, because you're like, Oklahoma State comes from behind. Because remember, they were trailing late. They had to have a 14-0 shutout over the Longhorns to sneak that one out. But that was at home. Like you said, rowdy atmosphere in the Little Apple. Oklahoma State number 8 in rush defense in the Big 12, and Deuce Vaughn and company like to run the football. Oklahoma State number 1 in scoring offense, though, in the conference. K-State number 10. I'm still just going with my gut with the offense. I'm riding with the team with the offense, with the more ways to beat you. I'm not a believer in the Will Howard sweepstakes here. I don't think he can get it done. So give me the Pokes to win and cover.
All right, lock it in. Our next one, going down to the ACC, we got Wake Forest at Louisville, the 10th ranked Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. Easy for me to say. Louisville is a 4.5-point home dog in this one. And I look at Wake Forest, right? I went in the Wayback Machine for this one.
Mm-hmm.
They are 6-9 all time when they are ranked in the top 15. And 2 of those wins were the last 2 weeks. So 4-9 when ranked in the top 15 all time. They've had a lot of struggles recently.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Louisville and Malik Cunningham. I feel like this is the kind of offense, like the kind of approach that works better at home, right? Like it doesn't travel the best, but I look at Wake Forest, and as much as I want to be like a naysayer of how legit Wake Forest is, this offense and Sam Hartman has still been really good. And I just don't believe in Louisville. I can't. And so I took Florida State at Louisville earlier in the year. That paid off for me. So give me Wake Forest to go on the road, win, and cover.
Wake, you know what Wake falls into? They're top 10 in scoring offense once again, Matt Green. Remember, they were one of the 10-win teams from a season ago who were in the top 10 in scoring. Tennessee being the only team in the Power 5 not to win 10 games and finish in the top 10 in scoring. Wake Forest is on their way there. They don't commit any penalties. Like, I was going through it. Like, they're one of the best teams in the country and not committing any penalties. So that's a big one. Louisville does commit a lot of penalties. 6 TDs, 7 picks for Malik Cunningham this year. Just not the kind of year you were expecting for a guy who, I mean, a lot of buzz. He's been there for a really long time. This is one of the biggest games of his Louisville career. I don't know. Wake, 25 TDs, 3 picks. Their defense is solid. I don't know. I think Wake is going to coast here the rest of the way. I think they figured a lot of stuff out, and I think Louisville, I'm not buying a little bit of recent optimism with that program. I'm going to go Wake to win and cover.
If someone told you preseason. 7 games in, Malik Cunningham and Anthony Richardson would have like almost identical stats. What would you think? Do you think they were both like dark horse Heisman candidates, or that they're both not very good? I'm not sure which direction I would have gone with that, but yeah, neither has been very good this year.
No, they have not. It's unfortunate, but I don't know. I think this is it for Scott Satterfield at Louisville.
It could be indeed. Keeping it moving, the Fighting Illini.
He might be a name to watch, by the way, for the Charlotte job, being a former App State coach. I wonder if he gets in the mix if he gets fired. Anyway, continue.
Illinois goes on the road at Nebraska. The Cornhuskers are a 7.5-point home dog in this one. Is this where I'm going to go the home dog of the week? Not so fast, my friend. Illinois, I caught you there. Shout out to Lee Corso. I don't want to take your bit. Illinois is, I think, like the 3rd ranked rushing offense in the Big Ten this year, but I want to say Chase Brown leads the nation in rushing, if I'm not mistaken. But Nebraska is getting absolutely torched week in and week out on the ground. This just feels like a vintage Brett Bielema Wisconsin team. Run the ball, play defense, holding opponents to 8.9 points per game. Nebraska's given up 31 a game. Like, Illinois is they're going to break the will of Nebraska. They are just going to run all over them. Give me the Illini, go on the road, win and cover.
The Illini, we keep betting against them. Keep betting against the Illini to this point. Man, like, they're just really, really good. Mark Whipple, their OC of Nebraska, said, quote, "They shorten the game. Their running back is a really good player, which helps their defense. Red zone, they're very opportunistic, and they are good on 3rd down. They run well on the back end, and they take care of 3rd downs and hold on to the ball. We have to be really good on 3rd down. They can rush the passer, and they can play the run well. Brett Bielema has done a good job. I've known him for a long time." Basically, he just said they're good at everything. Like, I read that quote and I'm like, okay, so they're good at every phase of football. This is what you just outlined here. Like, what? Like, that whole quote was him just outlining one by one all the great things that are integral to being a great college football team, and just football team in general. Illinois, number 2 rush defense nationally. Nebraska loves to run the football. I don't trust Casey Thompson through the air. They're 38th in passing offense. No, I think this is a bad matchup, even at home, for the Huskers. I can see this being close. What's the line again?
I want to say 7.5. Yeah.
Give me Illinois to win, but Nebraska to cover.
Put it on the board. Keeping it moving to the SEC. We got the Arkansas Razorbacks going on the road to the Auburn Tigers. Auburn is a 3.5-point favorite in this one.
Oh, you're skipping A&M.
No, that one's last.
You're going to do that last. Okay. And folks, let me be perfectly clear. The UCF and Cincinnati fans, this was not my doing. This was SEC Power 5 bias Matt Green interceding here.
That's fair. I'll let you throw in a UCF.
No, you made your point clear, Matt Green. You made your choice.
This is what the people want. They want Arkansas and Auburn.
Nobody wants this. I'm not watching 1 second of this. Who wants this?
Oh, I'll be watching.
No, you will not. What time is this game?
Is this our 7 o'clock, like ESPN, right?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Are you moving off Tennessee, Kentucky for this?
Oh, no, that's the 7 o'clock ESPN. This is a noon. I don't know why it's at the bottom. This is our noon SEC network.
Okay. So, and you're going to move away from Penn State, Ohio State for this one? You're going to move away from Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson with the best college football presentation? You're moving off?
I'll keep it on my flashback. I'll keep it on my radar.
Incredible. I cannot believe you're watching 1 second of this football game. Absolute slop.
With that said, the Auburn Tigers have won 6 straight over the Arkansas Razorbacks. And frankly, hasn't been close. Average margin of victory of 29 points per game over this 6-game winning streak for Auburn. However, as bad as Arkansas has been against the pass this year, Auburn has been equally as bad at passing offense this year. So it's like I don't feel like they're going to be able to exploit Arkansas's biggest weakness. This Auburn defense has just gotten run all over this year, and that's what Arkansas wants to do offensively with KJ Jefferson in. Like I feel like this has to feel like the longest season ever for Arkansas fans. Like it's like we've talked about some like teams like Ohio State or Michigan have played like 7 weeks and it doesn't feel like their season has started yet. Like Arkansas feels like they've played an entire season, like gone through just the ups and downs of an entire season, and they still have like 5 games left. But it's been a tough one so far. What are they? Are they 4-3 or are they 3-4? They're 4-3.
4-3.
So bounce back with a win over BYU. Both of these teams coming off a bye. Not sure who that's better for necessarily. Probably Auburn because they got a lot of things to fix. But with KJ Jefferson, like we saw what they did against Mississippi State without him. They're a completely different team. So they feel like they've been written off because they're 4-3. But I feel like they're still a solid team. So I like them to go on the road and beat out Auburn. So give me the Razorbacks to win and cover. Need to get back in the win column.
Oh, man. I think the Razorbacks win too. You know who's awful? The Auburn Tigers. It took overtime and a really dumb play by Mizzou for them not to have just a really long losing streak right now. Nothing's working. Like everyone's entering the portal.
Wow, it would be 5 straight losses.
Yeah. Like they're not winning this football game. Like it's over. This is all ending badly. I don't know what we're doing. Arkansas wins big and they cover. If they don't, huge questions about this program going forward. Like this is a no excuse win. The streak has to end against Auburn this year.
That's fair. It does have to end this year. This ends now. Keeping it moving. Ole Miss at Texas A&M. You know me. Biggest Rebel fan we got in college football. This guy over here. I've been skeptical of Ole Miss all season, and I talked about how tough this final stretch is going to be for them. 6 straight SEC West game opponents to finish the season. A&M has played 3 straight road games, which just seems criminal to me. Like, I don't feel like there should ever be a time where a team plays 3 straight road conference games. So, the entire house is on fire at A&M. They're backed into a corner. I just have a feeling A&M is going to come out in this one. It's a night game in Kyle Field. Like, I think this game is going to be – this is the bounce back that A&M needs. So I think Ole Miss was overrated getting into the top 10. I think they were very unproven to that point. And as just awful as A&M's offense has been, like Ole Miss is just – they've been giving up points the last few weeks. And so I think this is the game. A&M rights the ship. They are the home dog of the week, sir. Give me the Texas A&M Aggies to win and cover, obviously.
Whew. A&M is a good home team. Like even with everything that's happened, they were 6-1 at home last year. They haven't been home, Matt Green, since September 17th.
Yeah, that's absurd.
How does that work with your schedule? Like when you're going
September
through
24th, Arkansas. That
wasn't home.
Site. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
That was your wedding, right?
Yeah, 17th was my wedding.
Yes. And in Miami. Yeah, yes. I remember watching that in the hotel. Yeah, that's crazy. They haven't played a home game since you got married.
Almost
since
that's 6
you
weeks.
Were a married man. A&M has not played a home game.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I think that's part of all of this because A&M is a good home team and that's a real home atmosphere. Like Kyle Field, all the jokes about everything. Playing at A&M's hard. Winning at A&M is hard. And look, they lost at home to App State. I get that jokes, but I think they win here. I think Ole Miss slides. I was thinking about going back and forth in this one. I think Ole Miss is starting to come back down to earth a little bit. I think A&M stops the bleeding just a tad. They rally at home. And what was the line again?
It's 2.5.
Yeah, give me A&M to win and cover.
We're both going with the Aggies.
Yeah.
You know what else Texas A&M has not done since you were a married man? They have not scored more than 24 points They played 5 games and haven't scored 24 since they scored 31 against Sam Houston in the opener. So this Ole Miss might be what the doctor ordered, facing this susceptible Ole Miss defense.
Possibly.
But yeah, that's all we got for the pick'em, man. We'll see how it all shakes out.
So how many disagreements do we have total?
We had a few there down the stretch. Well, let me see here. We disagreed on Oklahoma State, Kansas State, OU, Iowa State.
Speaking of, I got a quote for you from Kiffin. Did you see what Kiffin said ahead of this game?
That's pretty much it. And then a couple of us had some of the win, but someone else cover. But yeah, only 2 like true disagreements. But what did he say?
Kiffin said, quote, DJ really turned around our defense here and played really good, especially the second half of last year, Kiffin said. Quote, we tried to keep him because he did a great job, got outbid, kind of a common theme with that program. He's done a really good job there. They're very multiple and doing a lot of good things. Lane Kiffin, man. He does not care.
Yeah, I gotta respect it.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin just always talking shit, always poking the bear. That's why I can't hate on it. It's like he keeps the league fresh. I like it.
Future Auburn Tiger head coach Lane Kiffin.
If the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets don't make a run for him,
I feel like that's a Bill O'Brien job, right? Like the Alabama guy coming in, Bill O'Brien connections to Alabama. Or to Georgia Tech.
Is that he has Georgia Tech connections?
Yeah, he was assistant coach there.
I don't know. Is Bill O'Brien? Does that get you excited? I feel like Tech's got to get a young guy,
No, you did the whole like rejuvenation with Jeff Collins, where it's like we're gonna be fun and young and
they need a recruiter. They need a recruiter. Bill O'Brien does not.
He recruited well at Penn State.
How long did he last at Penn State?
So he was at Georgia Tech, by the way, from 1995 to 2002.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could see it. That's
George Godsey and him are close. You bring back George Godsey to run the offense. OC George Godsey.
George Godsey, great memory for
Reggie Ball, QB coach.
Fans. Reggie Ball, George Godsey's provided some great memories for Georgia fans. But yeah, I mean, I can't really rule out anybody for Georgia Tech because I don't really know like what their ballpark is. Like I don't know who's really interested in that job. Like who sees a high ceiling at that job. Like I really have no clue. It's an ACC job in the middle of the Southeast, like a Power 5 job in the middle, like right in the heart of the Southeast. Like on paper, it's got a lot of things going for it, but with some football history, but I don't know. It's been a while.
There you go. Matt Green, that's all I've got, sir.
How about you give a UCF Cincinnati pick? UCF +1. What do you say? At home.
I think UCF wins and covers. I think this is Cincinnati's 63rd in the country on third down. UCF is number 1 in long rushing plays, but also Cincinnati number 2 in limiting long scrimmage plays. So the defense has not been. Cincinnati's fine. I don't like the quarterback situation this year. They're just not the same. No Desmond Ridder back there. I think UCF scores enough. And John Reese Plumlee had a turnover heavy game last week, but at home I think they bounce back. I think UCF wins this one.
Put it on the board. Bounce house.
Yeah, watch that one over freaking Auburn, Arkansas, A&M.
Well, that's a 3:30 kickoff. So my TV will likely never be on the UCF Cincinnati game. Like I'll check out, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Like I'll flip over, but Georgia, Florida will be front and center 3:30 on Saturday.
Nice little appetizer before the big dogs play at 7.
And I want to throw some shade at a baby shower. Not a baby shower, actually, I have to be at this weekend. A baby sprinkle.
What is that?
Because it's the second child. But one of my best friends.
Wait, do you call it a sprinkle for the second child? Is it a sprinkle?
I guess because like a shower is like a heavy, heavy rain. Sprinkle is just like it's a little something. It's not as big as a baby shower, I guess, but it's like, hey,
wow, that second kid getting screwed over here. Like he didn't do anything wrong. He just came out number 2. That's not fair.
She got a lot of the solid a lot of the first baby stuff that you can use for the second baby. I don't know. I'm not a baby expert, but
Yeah.
buddy of mine who's diehard Florida fan, they have decided her sister and friend have decided to throw a baby shower on Georgia Florida weekend. It's just absolutely.
What time is it?
I think it's noon to 2.
Okay.
So I'll be able to make it
Yeah, you
home.
can get in and get out.
But it's the principle, sir. This guy did get married the bye week.
Why not do it in the morning? Do it at like 10 to noon. Do it a morning thing. That should be a morning party.
It should be a Sunday
brunch.
thing. Come on, baby sprinkle. We already had one. We already had one baby. We don't need the second one. But no. But yeah. So I'll be rocking my Georgia, wearing my colors. Because got to show out with the Florida people around. But
I mean, you were wearing the Georgia colors at my own wedding.
You know it, man. Especially I was in enemy territory. Walking through Knoxville. The only thing me and Tori packed were exclusively Georgia shirts.
Wow. We
had to rep our colors, and it was all worth it too. I feel like we were getting the exact looks we wanted to get from the fans decked out in orange on Sunday morning. It was a dirty look. It was also an envious look. Like, oh man, this team walking around ranked number 1, just destroyed South Carolina by like 45 points or something. It was just it was a good. Yeah, that's another thing that's getting overlooked. You're throwing out all these ranked wins for Tennessee. Don't look now. Georgia's got 2 wins over ranked teams. They won those games by what, like 95-10, I think those two wins over ranked teams. So just watch out for those Bulldogs. Or
only one of us is struggling against Mizzou this season, and it's not the Tennessee Volunteers.
Can't explain the performance the Bulldogs had in Columbia, Missouri. It's like LeBron's 2010 finals. It's like just can't explain it. LeBron fans, like, yeah, it's a black mark on his legacy. So yeah, that's the one thing this 2022 team. If they play like they played against Missouri, they can obviously get beat by anybody, Florida included. But I think they've righted the ship the last few weeks. Things are clicking a little better offensively. I think they're finally finding more of a run game. Like, I'm kind of curious to see who the 1-2 punch is going to be for Georgia on Saturday. I think you could see a lot of Dejon Edwards and Branson Robinson in this one, which were really the 3 and 4 running backs coming into the season.
For that guy down there in Tequila, Georgia, Matt Green, for myself up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, that is all we've got. Matt, enjoy tailgating for Parkview Brookwood, the Battle of Five Forks on Friday night as they face off. Parkview had a great region showing.
I don't miss a Battle of Five Forks or whatever you just called it.
The Battle of Five Forks. Yeah, there you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I will talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, sir.